This is all about you. This podcast is about your journey in music and how you got to where you are now. And we can talk about your project, Hamish.
Yeah. I'm flattered and honored.
Cool, man. So I did read you're born and raised, or I don't know if you're born and raised, but you're from Houston originally, right?
So that's usually my short verse.
Okay.
Uh,
Well, what's the long verse?
Long verse. So I was born in the Middle East in Abu Dhabi.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so not Houston.
Okay.
Yeah,
Completely off. I guess my research
completely.
was on.
Your research was on with the information. But yes, Abu Dhabi. For about 2 years, my family was based there. My father was working in oil at the time.
Okay.
Uh, he worked for this company that had an office out there. Before that, they lived in London for
Oh.
about 10 years. My dad is English and my mother is from the Philippines.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
wife's half Filipino too.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, so
Yeah.
she gets it. Um,
She does. Yeah, her mom, I don't she's from Manila area, but yeah, she came out here like when she was or she came to San Diego when I think she was around 12 or so. But my
oh wow.
father-in-law's from Chicago, so she's very light skinned, light complexion.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's super super strange. Yeah, just being I guess you're like a third culture kid if you're half Filipino and then you come to the States. For me, it's like I have this whole other part of living in the Middle East, and it's like this whole other culture I grew up around, and then I moved here to the States. So it's been it's been sort of a reckoning of getting used to as
Uh-huh.
I've become an adult. Just like, wow, like I'm not from anywhere.
You said mom's Filipino?
Mom's Filipino,
Okay.
dad's white, like British.
Mhm.
Yeah. So they were in Abu Dhabi. We lived there for about 2 years, and then we moved to Dubai, which is where I spent the majority of my childhood
Okay.
until I was about nine
Wow,
years
so
old.
your parent okay. Mom's from the Philippines, dad's from England, and you were born in the where were you? You were born in the Middle East?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Wow, interesting. Okay.
yeah.
So where
So
does your citizenship lie? I'm just curious.
right now, as of 2 years ago, I'm a dual citizen of here, the states,
Uh-huh.
and the UK.
Oh, okay. Do you
Yeah,
kind of get
yeah.
to choose? Can you pick like the Philippines or the Middle East or the UK? Like how does that work if you don't mind me asking? I'm just curious.
The well, we were granted the UK citizenship, I think, despite being born in the Middle East. And I'm honestly not exactly sure how it worked. I just
Okay.
know, uh, like when we moved here, my family was gratefully granted like green cards
Hmm.
to the U.S. But not citizenship immediately. So when we were overseas in the Middle East, my dad was like an expat, uh, and the company that he was working for was based in the UK. So
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Can you but you could
it's
claim
kind of
Middle East, right? I mean, if you wanted, you could be a
uh yeah, by birthright possibly.
yeah, I would think, right?
Yeah, I want to keep things as simple as possible.
You don't want to
So
get too to confuse everybody.
yeah, yeah. We're like 2 minutes in, and it's already so. That's why I say
That's why you say from Houston.
that's why I say that. That's why I say I'm from Texas.
I love that. All right, sorry. Okay, so then you spent your like your early childhood in Dubai.
Yeah.
Okay, what was that like? Like, how old were you
Uh,
when you moved out of there?
so right when I moved out there, I was about two. So that's when my memories started to form. I really
Okay.
don't have that many memories of Abu Dhabi that much. But it was all I ever knew. At that point as a kid, and my schooling was done through an English school. So I went through a British curriculum, but it was
Okay.
also very international kind of vibe there. So I knew a lot of English kids, Arabic Arabic kids as well,
Hmm.
Canadians, and then a couple Americans too. So I was in this kind of really cool melting pot that I'm actually super grateful for having grown up and been educated through.
Hmm.
Um, And then yeah, so I think about 2006 is when my family left and came here to the States. So we immigrated.
Okay. And how old were you at that point?
I was nine, about to turn 9 years old
Okay.
when that
So you're
happened.
still in elementary school at this point.
Still in elementary school. I was entering the fourth grade when we moved here.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, so, so we moved here. I spent my majority of that year in Burbank, California.
Okay. So LA, when you
LA.
moved originally, when you moved here?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
originally. And then the following year I moved to Houston.
Okay. So you're about 10 when you moved to Houston?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Right on. And how did me like when did you start getting into music? Because I know some kids start like, super early, 4 or 5 years old. Like, I don't know where that landed for you and how that kind of shaped
Uh,
your career.
it didn't land for me until I was about 12 going on 13.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, music was always around though.
Hmm.
My mother was a singer in the Philippines.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she was like she was in a band that toured a lot around Asia. And that's actually
Interesting.
how,
Like, that's so cool. Like, oh man, that's
yeah,
rad.
it was really cool. I'm still sort of discovering that side of my mom's life. It's really awesome.
That is really
Um,
rad. Does she have records out and stuff?
she's got, I think, live albums. There's live videos of the band.
Have you
There's
seen any of that? I'm sure you have.
Yeah, yeah, they're great. It's so cool to see my mom kill it.
Yeah.
Back then in the '80s and whatnot. They brought R&B. They did a lot of covers. Like covers are like everything in the Philippines. Like cover
Oh,
bands.
is it really?
Yeah, like there's literally thousands of cover bands there, and it makes up a lot of the music scene there. It's super cool.
That's rad.
But her group did a lot of R&B, a lot of soul and
Okay.
Motown stuff, and they brought it essentially to that part of the world, which is really really cool. And so
Wow.
I subsequently grew up with that music, playing a lot.
Hmm.
That as well as Buena Vista Social Club. That album for my whole family, is very nostalgic, which is really
Hmm.
cool. Um, so that was always around. I really got into music, yeah, when I was about 12. I was gifted a guitar from my mom, and she was like playing. I remember there's this memory of her playing these just GCD chords out of
Hmm.
this little book, this sort of like tutoring book. And it was like the coolest, most fascinating thing for me. And I
Hmm.
don't really know why. She was just kind of like playing them. I didn't pick up the guitar though till about 2 years later when I was 14.
Okay. Did
Yeah.
mom play prior or was that just some hobby she decided to pick up?
Yeah, my mom played. My mom played in church, and
Oh,
I
okay.
guess she would do it
In the band? Or
in
was
the
she just a
band
singer?
to like
Okay.
practice. I think it was more of a utilitarian thing for her.
Got it.
And then yeah, whenever she would be playing in church, sometimes she would have the guitar with her.
Okay.
But beyond that, I didn't really grow up around other musicians other than my family. Like my sisters all played piano when we were super young in the Middle East.
Okay.
I hated it. I hated music, when I
Like
was,
most kids?
yeah, like most kids, I really did not want to do. I was more of an athlete.
Okay.
I eventually got into like soccer and stuff, and that was something I took somewhat seriously
Mhm.
growing up. Definitely more than music for a while, but I kept getting injured.
Oh.
Yeah, as a teenager, I was getting injured a lot, and I was sort of picking up the guitar at the same time.
Mhm.
And then there was this one summer. This was about a year after I picked it up. I learned like every Beatles song in
Wow.
the summer. I was so bored. I was at my cousin's house in they live up in Salt Lake City, and they have this really cool house, but I wasn't doing anything most days, so I was like reading like books. I was a prolific reader this one summer,
Mhm.
and have not been since. It's really weird. But I was also learning all these songs, all these Beatles songs, and resulted in me sort of falling in love with song, as well as the instrument.
You were learning how to play them or you were just learning the lyrics?
Learning how to play them, really.
Oh,
I was
wow.
like, I was discovering like, oh, this chord, you're like this sound on this record, and I distinctly remember trying to take a shot at like the Let It Be guitar solo
Okay.
come the end of it. So that was like the end of my study. My little residency of learning the Beatles music was this George Harrison solo. And
Solo.
yeah, I look back at that time and I'm really grateful for it because
Uh-huh.
there's like there's definitely a learning curve with guitar. And I think, if you really stick with it after a certain amount of time, like a few months, kind of what I did, where like every day I was learning something on it,
Mm-hmm.
you pass this curve, and you want to take it more seriously, and you want to learn more and get better at it. And that's kind of where I hit after that summer. And shortly after that, I came back to Houston, and I wasn't really taking lessons. I was just kind of learning on my own. And someone hit me up, who lived in my town, and this goes like, "Hey, I'm writing songs. I want to start a band. I need a
Mm-hmm.
guitar player." And I thought it was the coolest shit ever. So
Sure.
I was very very excited to take it on. So this band, this was like a weekly. We would practice, and he would show me songs, and I would muck about and learn parts, and then create parts, with his music. And eventually, we had a full roster of people.
Mm-hmm.
Started playing locally around the Houston scene, the venue scene, which is a great scene. I'm really grateful to have grown up in Houston around that music scene, because it was
Well,
people who just yeah, sorry.
no, go ahead. I didn't
I was
mean to
just
cut you
saying,
off.
like, it's a really cool scene. And it was a lot of people my age, a lot of people a little older than me as well, but they were all
Mm-hmm.
very passionate about music.
Uh-huh.
I'm not, it wasn't necessarily like everybody was like, we're gonna do this, for life.
Like professionally.
Professionally, yeah. We never
Okay.
really spoke about that, but it was something we all really put a lot of time into,
Mm-hmm.
through junior high and high school.
I was gonna ask, yeah, when did you start playing those shows that you're in like junior high when that started?
Yeah, like at the back end of junior high, like around, yeah, the mid to the late eighth grade
Okay. Do you
from high
remember like
school.
setting up for the first time, like at a gig and that whole, the
Oh yeah,
excitement there?
yeah. There was one gig where we as a full band started. Um, I just remember it being like the most fun, exciting thing. I thought it would. I felt like I was, in Madison Square Garden.
Sure. What
Like,
was the venue you were playing? Do you remember?
it was this venue called the Satellite Room. It was in Northwest Houston.
Okay.
So I think my friend's mom drove us there in like her Prius, and I had,
Wow, you got all the gear in a Prius.
right, yeah, all of our amps and stuff. Well, they got big trunks
Oh,
actually.
okay.
The Priuses are pretty spacious. Thinking back to it, so yeah, we got all the gear in there. I had like a little 20-watt amp, and I have a Fender Stratocaster that I still use today.
The same
Um,
one.
the same guy, yeah.
Oh,
I've
that's dope.
had it for 10 years now.
It's like Billy Joe from Green Day had the same guitar his dad bought him, and he played it until like I think the the Dookie record.
Oh dang,
Yeah,
yeah.
he just
Oh
kept having
man,
it set up.
that mine is overdue for a setup. Um, yeah, so that was like the beginnings of it. Again, we were never like, all right, this is it. Like we're gonna do this thing. And I don't
Uh-huh.
think I had that moment. I don't think I had that moment until like really the back end of high school. Um, so
Were you
I
guys like getting bigger shows, or like what made it to? Was there a
bigger
moment that you're like, you know what, this is what I really want to do
yeah, bigger shows.
forever?
And I think, by high school, we were starting to tour a little bit
Really?
around, yeah, around regionally, like around Texas. But
Uh
then we
huh.
gradually started booking longer and further routes outside of Texas.
Wow. And in high school.
Yeah, in high school. So like
And you see your parents
whenever,
were cool with you guys traveling. That's pretty rad.
seemingly so, yeah. I'm
Well,
super.
like, yeah, I did
It
it.
was kind of just like, yeah, mom, dad, I got this show up in Dallas or something. I'm gonna go
Mhm.
do a run up there in Denton, and we're gonna go up there. And they were like, oh wow, cool,
Oh, that's
Um,
rad.
yeah, it was really cool. I love touring. I miss it a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
Hopefully
today,
soon, man. It's all the apparently there, there's a light. Not apparently, but it looks like there is.
I see the light, and it's coming towards me. I don't know whether to start, running towards it
Right. Where everyone's kind of
yet.
like, is that really it?
Yeah. Yeah, is that really exactly? That's literally where I'm at right now. Yeah, so in high school we caught wind of this singer who was in a bigger band. We had a similar sound, and this guy was starting a record label, and he was going to become a manager and manage all
Mhm.
the bands on his label. And he approached us, and our singer was a really big fan of him.
Okay.
They were, do you know Dance Gavin Dance?
Yes, I do actually.
Yeah, yeah. So Kurt Travis of Dance Gavin Dance came to us, came to my
Wow.
singer, and was like, "I really like you guys. Like, I'm starting this whole thing," um, and he really wanted to sign us to this new label he was starting. So my singer, head over heels, worships this guy, but we
Mhm.
signed to him, and so I'm like, okay, so this is like for real, for real. Around the same time, so I'm in Houston for like 7 years at this point. I then moved back to California. So this is my junior year of high school.
Oh,
Spent a
bummer.
year. Yeah, it was a huge bummer. I had a life. I had the band. I had
You
all
had
the
your
all the stuff
friends, like,
going.
yeah,
Yeah.
in your
And
junior year. Ouch, that's
yeah,
too
yeah,
bad.
yeah. It was rough. So I had this year to myself out here, and I was super lonely, very depressed. But the one thing I that was a constant for me was music. Still,
Hmm.
even though it was just me, it was like me back in my bedroom
Like writing songs.
playing, learning songs, not necessarily writing songs, but
Okay.
just putting time into the instrument, and knowing I could stick to this because I didn't have that much else going for me, or felt like I didn't. Um, I was able to convince my parents to move back to Houston the following year, thankfully. So I come back, and
So you were able to like
uh,
graduate with your friends and
yeah,
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 that's cool.
yeah. It was. I'm really happy I did it. It was a big learning experience doing that
Hmm.
year off, and real being grateful for what I had. Um, that's kind of what I got from it.
Hmm.
But while I was out here, I met a guy who had gone to Berkeley about 15 years prior, and he
Okay.
kept telling me, like, he would sneak me into these jams at this place called Hotel Cafe. He had like a residency there.
The one in LA?
The one in LA, yeah,
Oh,
yeah. So
okay.
I would drive in from Pasadena, which is where I
Hmm.
lived, uh, and I would find parking. I'm like 17 at this point. It's 21 and up, but he sneaks me in through the front door, and I get to watch him and his band play. And it's like
Wow.
it's a caliber of musicianship I had not heard until this point, and it completely opened my mind up again, almost like what happened to me with the Beatles. It also
Hmm.
scared the living shit out of me, seeing these players. These were world class, professional touring musicians in this guy's band.
Hmm.
These were the cats.
Sure.
And so this was my first sort of exposure to that. But this guy at the same time was like, yeah, man, you should try out for Berkeley. You should audition. And I kept telling him, like, I'm not good enough. Like, I don't play jazz. I'm not that kind of guitar player. And he's like, no, 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 you should really, take a shot at it. So Berkeley was doing touring auditions. They were, doing different cities. They came to Houston.
Oh wow, they do that. They
Oh
come out
yeah,
to different towns and kind of seek out musicians.
yeah,
I wasn't
yeah.
aware of that.
They do auditions in Boston, but they also have a team that goes year round. I think globally, no, but no, I know they go around the
Maybe.
U.S. They go around the
Yeah.
U.S. and like they'll have
Wow.
certain areas where you can go and audition for faculty, and there's also students there you can talk to.
Wow.
Um, so I signed up to audition and apply
Hmm.
to the school.
As a
I ended up
guitar
doing
player.
as a guitar principal. So I had to get a piece ready. I ended up writing this like guitar loop sort of solo piece that in retrospect you should never do, like never bring a looper to an audition, because certain
Okay.
things could go wrong. But I did that, and the audition was in Beyonce's father's studio as well, which was like also
Wow.
super trippy. um,
Yeah, she's like, yeah. Everywhere
yeah,
I've ever interviewed from Houston is like, she's kind of obviously she's like the biggest deal ever, but like the Houston people are like, she. I mean, yeah.
she's like the monarch.
Right. Right. There
They
you
are
go.
like she is like the royal of her and her sister. They were groomed by their dad, but they're like royals.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of musicians from Houston are regarded in that way, which is, I think, is so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I was there. It was Matthew Knoll's studio. I had very little experience playing, contemporary stuff like jazz and R&B and blues and stuff like that from the diaspora of, I want to say, African American music.
Mm-hmm.
I was playing this like post-hardcore emo indie shit,
Sure.
and I was hungry to learn that stuff, and that's what I told the guys in the audition. So I played this piece. I think about, what, 2 months later. So I'm about to graduate. I
You
need to
played
go
the
to
loop.
college.
You played the guitar
I
loop
played the
piece.
loop thing. Yeah, I played the
Okay.
piece, and then they asked me a bunch of questions. The audition at Berkeley is not. It's not like Juilliard. There's like 4 tiers to Juilliard, and
Uh-huh.
it's really intense. At Berkeley, you talk to two faculty members who really just want to talk to you, like
Uh-huh.
as a person. They want to know your background, why you want to go to school, what you want to study, etc. So I was just telling them, brief background, what I wanted to do at the school, and then I left. It was about 20 minutes, I think.
Wow. I've heard different stories though. I will tell you this.
Really?
I've
Oh, I
talked
would
to a
love to
lot
hear
of
them.
people that have went to Berkeley doing this podcast. And some people say like that what you just said. Like, yeah, it wasn't very intimidating. Other people are like, yeah, they were letting everybody in. Basically, I just sent them a tape and like a video or whatever. And then there's people that were like, they made you sight read on the spot and like do all these things like you'd have to know like music theory right off the top of your
Right,
head. So
like
it sounds
you've
like
gotta, yeah, you've gotta learn all these crazy transcriptions and
yeah. So you
this,
didn't
that,
have that
and that.
experience. It doesn't sound like.
They asked me to sight read one thing, but I told them straight up, I was like, I don't know how to do this. I was learning it. I was
Okay.
learning it in that time, and I was just wanted to be real with them. It's like,
Sure.
I want to go to this school so I can learn how to do this stuff, and so I can now do it, thankfully,
That's amazing.
because of that. But at the time, I was just real with them and said, I can't do
Right.
this.
Right.
Like, I'm a
Right.
guitar player. Like, a lot of guitar players don't bother with it, and it's completely normal.
Sure.
Um,
Okay. So you
yeah,
get
so
into the school, obviously.
I got into the school. It was, I made my family so proud. I look back on it and I'm really happy.
Tell me how you found out the news.
I I woke up in the middle of the night and found out I got the acceptance letter in an email.
Oh, okay.
And then
Were you
the
like
next
worried opening it? Was it just like their
Oh
name, or did
yeah,
it just said congratulations in the headline or the
it said
title?
congratulations in the
Oh,
title.
okay. So you're
So
like, okay, I know
it's
this is
like
gonna be
dear
good
Matt.
news.
And then I read it and I was like, oh yeah, I was like kind of in the middle of the night, and then I went back to sleep.
Okay.
I'm like,
You
get
didn't
this.
go wake your parents up.
Oh no,
Like,
no.
check the laptop out. I got in.
I figured I would mess with my dad, so I came downstairs and he was like just kind of staring at me. I was about to leave for school, and he's like, so.
Did he know that you were supposed to get the news that day or
Yeah,
something?
yeah. We
Okay.
knew it was like April 1st we were supposed to get it, which is a terrible day to get
Right. Yeah.
acceptance.
It's just like congratulations and open it up. It's like April Fools, you didn't get in. Try again next year.
Oh my god, can you imagine? Well, I messed with my dad. I was like, I just kind of did this for like 5 seconds, and then I was like, no, I got in.
Oh.
And my dad literally jumped like 3 feet in the air. It
Oh,
was
that's so
so cool.
cool. That's so
So
cool.
I had the acceptance to Berkeley. I had this thing going with Kurt and the band, and I knew like I couldn't really do both,
Mm-hmm.
given what I was told about the band and what we were contractually obligated to do at this point. Like, we were supposed to go record a record, and do a lot of touring to promote this record. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
was told. And so I was getting sort of mixed messages, but they were leaning on, you shouldn't go to school, basically, is what
Mm-hmm.
the guys in the band were telling me and what Kurt was hinting at. I decided to go for one semester, and then I left shortly after to commit to the band.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah, I left. I took a semester off, so I
Sure.
did go back eventually, but
So the band was still going. You had left. They were still signed to his label,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
they put a record out. Did you help them with the record? Or
Yeah, so we went up to Portland, Oregon, and we recorded with this guy called Mike Som, and he's got a studio out there called Dream Awake Audio. So we spent about 3 weeks there
wow.
doing this album, and it was co-funded. We sort of crowdfunded it, and then the label also paid for it, which was super sick. And we toured on the way up to Portland with
Oh,
Kurt
dope.
to do it. Yeah, so it was a lot of fun. I was 18 years old on the road,
Yeah.
doing the music thing. I was on top of the world.
Rock star. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, rock star life. So we were there. We finished the album, and like 2 days later, I have to leave to go to Boston
Okay.
orientation. So I flew out of Portland to Houston, grabbed my shit, and then flew to Boston, and moved in, and was a Berkeley kid for 4 months.
Uh huh.
And I loved it. I loved my first semester. I was extremely humbled as soon as I got there. There were, the thing is there's 150 people doing the exact same thing as you,
Yeah.
wanting the same thing as you,
Mhm.
and you have this like crisis 6 weeks in, like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
where am I?
Is it
Who
like
am I?
overwhelmed? I mean, obviously now
Oh
you're
yeah,
surrounded by like the best guitar player in every small town across America.
exactly. All the big fish in the little ponds come to this pond
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, and it's the same place. There's nothing else like it on earth, frankly. There's like 5,000 of the most astute musical people in like a 10 square mile radius
Mm-hmm.
of
Sure.
Boston. It's insane and very overwhelming. As a freshman, as a guy who grew up playing this like post-hardcore indie stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I was still hungry, and I had the ear to learn the materials that was thrown at me,
Mm-hmm.
and I took it on, pretty well. Um, and at this point, I'm still very much the guitar player. Like, my goals are, I want to become the best I can, play as much different music as I can, learn as much different music as I can while I'm here. My focus into like songwriting and stuff did not come till way later along the
Oh,
line at
okay.
Berkeley. So I took the semester off. I'll try and shorten it a little. Like, we toured some, that
Mm-hmm.
year, that semester I took off, but we did not tour to the extent I was expecting.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, I'm sort of feeling like, okay, I'm not gonna wait around for this band to like blow up. I'm gonna go become a student of music, learn, become the best I can, and I'll see where they're at in like 4 years. So I tell them, hey guys, like, I'm gonna go back to school. I wish you guys the best, truly.
Mm-hmm.
They were my school for like 7 years at this
Mm-hmm.
point. I grew up with these guys, but I decided to move on and go back to school. So the following fall, I'm back, and I'm there for like 3.5 more years, studying,
Mm-hmm.
gigging a lot. I started joining bands based there. I started playing around, sort of becoming that guy, the guy I wanted to be, of just like the person to call when you need a guitar player. Um, I then decided to add like songwriting to my degree, like a songwriting concentrate. And this was something I really thought I wanted to do. In my head, I wanted to explore, but I didn't realize how difficult it was to be a songwriter. I didn't realize what it took to do that, and realizing that I had this profound appreciation for it after 2 classes of it at school. And then it wasn't until like a year later where I wrote my first song that I was actually proud of. And from then, I kind of stuck around. Like, okay, like I like songwriting. I like this process. I can see myself in it. But I didn't do anything with it. I didn't start a project. I wasn't writing with other people outside of the classes, and I was still doing the guitar thing.
Mm-hmm.
So this is about 2019 now. I'm supposed to be finishing up. I end up actually dropping out
Oh, okay.
I run out of money. I don't want to sign a lease on an apartment in Boston. I figure, okay, I'm just gonna move to LA, and my family's here. At this point, my sisters and my mother are all living here again,
Hmm.
living and working here. So I move out here, sort of ready to do that thing that I was doing in Boston, become the guitar player, play around. Um, and it was the same sort of experience. I was going into an even bigger pond now.
Hmm.
It wasn't school. It was real life. You've really got to put your best foot out there, that sort of thing. And I was on that grind of like, I want to find gigs, I want to tour, I want to be in sessions, whatever it may be to make the bread, to do the thing. So I'm
Hmm.
in LA for about 6 months, and then COVID hits.
Oh man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was
Okay.
uh, it was like just getting my feet planted,
Hmm.
and then COVID hits. Everything stops. I'm out here. I'm
Well, at least you were
really.
by your family. Can you? I mean, you weren't stuck in Boston by yourself,
Oh
right?
my goodness. If my family wasn't here last year, I don't know what I would have done. I probably would have left. Honestly,
Yeah.
I probably would have gone back to Texas or something.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I knew a lot of kids who were in Boston, like
Stuck.
March. Yeah, stuck.
Yeah.
A lot of international kids. I could not imagine what it was like for them.
Yeah.
Being in Boston with nothing going on is, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy.
That's funny.
uh, Through the winter and everything.
Right.
Yeah, so
Right.
like it was super weird. There was no like there's no playbook in music, but there's no playbook for a pandemic, and
Right.
the musician path is not equipped to withstand a pandemic. Just
Well,
bottom
obviously,
line,
yeah. I mean,
obviously,
yeah.
and I don't.
So
And
many
we all
people are hurting. I mean,
we
not that other industries weren't, but I
we
mean,
the creatives were this was the worst year in like modern history to be a creative. I think
yeah,
some would argue that it was the best time with Twitch,
creativity. Oh yeah,
Twitch,
sure.
the time, you can really develop your craft, and I believe that as well. But if you're a person who plays out, if you're a person who needs to sustain living by touring, it was
Right.
the worst year for that. You
Hmm.
just simply could not do it. A lot of people still aren't. And so I thought, my world is ending. Like, I am all this time, all this work I put in to do this thing, I can't do now. And so
Hmm.
I was, very hungry musician with nothing to do. And at this point, prior to COVID, I was out here doing the guitar thing, but I was also meeting up with a friend of mine like once a week, and we were seshing. He's a producer. His name's Trey Nakota. Goes by Trey
Okay.
Kams. Um, he's also from Texas. He's from Dallas, but he's a hip hop producer.
Hmm.
I'm this like indie sort of cesspool of things, and and we would meet up once a week and make tunes together. And at one point, I started singing on them, like just putting ideas down, and we'd come out and be like, "Oh, this is pretty cool," but we never really thought of anything to do with them. And about May of 2020, he calls me and he's like, "So when do you want to put these out?"
Oh wow.
And I'm like, "Oh, that's a great question. I don't know. Maybe,
Sure.
hopefully this year or something." Um, and so then my mind started working, and plotting and thinking like, okay, I could have a project. This is the best time to sort of develop that and at least workshop it.
Hmm.
Because you have this time at least to do that, and you right now you have somewhat of a freedom to do it. So that's when I started Hamish, or when it was the inception of it was in the middle of everything going on.
Wow.
So COVID, uh,
COVID
Black Lives.
project.
It's a COVID project. Black
Hmm.
Lives Matter was in full swing around the same time. Um, yeah, so it was a COVID thing. It was birthed out of the pandemic. Um,
Wow.
and it was just so scary. It was the
Hmm.
scariest thing I could have made myself do. Sort of becoming this like artist, other entity
Hmm.
in the middle of of everything that was going on and still is. Um, but you know, I it was something I wanted to do that was in my brain for a long time, in the back of my brain, you know,
Mm-hmm.
for a long time, and I wanted to see it through and see if I could do it. Um, so yeah, about September 16th, I think, is when I dropped my first single, and it's this like weird homage to house music and hip hop. It's this weird sound that I didn't envision, but it sort of came out, and I was like, cool, let's release it.
Yeah. Which
The
one was that? Was that Flavors?
This was Flavors, yeah.
Okay.
So Flavors, I came in to Trey Studio, and I was like, let's make a house guy.
Okay.
So there's this like four on the floor that's happening the whole time. There's this
Mm-hmm.
bass loop that's happening the whole time, but I'm doing pop song form over it, and it's weird, but we like it. We like weird. Trey and
Yeah.
we like the experiment.
Uh-huh.
We really lean into that with Hamish. It's a no frills sort of thing in this age of genre bending and mixing. We want to
Sure.
see how far we can push that palette. Um, and it I don't know, it got a funny reception, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I wasn't expecting this from you, like this sound, I was not expecting that, which I'm all for,
Mm-hmm.
shortly after I released the other track, Tapping In,
Uh-huh.
around October, and
Which is
after
also
that,
a rad like blend. I mean,
a
you got the
rad blend.
like little horns in it, and it's got
Yeah,
the rap verse, and it's got the lo-fi kind of sound to it.
exactly. Yeah, so
Yeah.
we brought a lot of different things to the table. The rap verse is a friend of ours from Atlanta, from South Carolina. His name is Yako, or Chet Morley.
Okay.
And then the sax is a friend of mine, Kavan Scott. He's an LA-based sax player. He's the best. He's
Oh
the
yeah,
best.
it sounds dope. I wasn't sure if that was just something that you guys like sampled or you know
Yeah, so we
created on the
had
computer, but that was actually somebody playing saxophone.
yeah, that was somebody
Wow.
really. He we sent him the track, and he arranged all these parts throughout the track, and we wanted to keep all of it.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, I don't like. We probably shouldn't keep all of it. We should save, you know, the sax for. He comes in with that huge sort of flurry of parts after the rap verse.
Hmm.
And so we wanted to save the sax for that moment and let it have its real moment there, for the instrumental. And
Hmm.
that's what ended up making the record. And essentially, we sort of treated his tracks like a sample.
Hmm.
We treated the live stuff in that regard as to, they're almost like loops, or they're almost like records that you're sort of flipping.
Sure.
And that's the way Trey goes about music most of the time.
Hmm.
He comes from this hip hop background, this MPC sort of. I'm building tracks from these samples, these drums, and I'm putting it together. And
Hmm.
I love that process.
Hmm.
At Berkeley, I was surrounded by producers who grew up listening to guys like MF Doom, the Mad Villain album, Madlib, all that stuff. That stuff is so dope. It's some of the coolest music ever made.
Hmm.
Um, and Trey is very much from that cloth, and we wanted to sort of mix those two together. Um, so yeah, after tapping in, I kind of went into this like sort of hibernation, really,
Okay.
as a person, but also as an artist. The the case count here was so high. I wasn't seeing friends. I wasn't working.
Hmm.
I had this project that I just started, and it was so overwhelmed, with life and also music at this point. So I kind of take a step back, and I'm telling myself, don't force it. Don't uh, don't think you have to do everything all at once. There's a lot of things you can't do
Hmm.
currently. I'm in this sort of stage till about February of 2021.
Hmm.
And then Trey and I go out to Joshua Tree, and we end up producing and writing what's probably going to be my next EP
Oh,
coming out.
awesome.
Yeah, this fall. But this was like creatively reinvigorating for the both of us.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and it gave me a plan, for 2021. It gave me that sort of vision again that I
Hmm.
was like sort of letting go for a while. Um, and that's kind of where we are right now.
That's
After this,
amazing.
yeah. So this was February. I'm in the middle of mixing the first single of this project.
Okay.
And I'm also resuming the guitarist thing,
Hmm.
that I haven't been able to do for a year. But I'm
Right.
starting to, I'm
Hmm.
seeing light, and grasping at it.
Yeah, sure.
So that's where I am presently.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
So this new EP is going to be under Hamish as well.
yeah. Under
Okay.
Hamish,
Or Hamish, sorry.
Hamish, yeah, Hamish. It's like a Scottish name in origin.
Okay.
And it's my second. I have two middle names. My
That's
parents gave me
awesome.
two. That's the second one. Yeah.
Right on. So Hamish, and are you planning, obviously, when the light finally gets here, you're gonna tour, or you said
Oh
that's kind of
man,
what your passion is, or where it lies?
I would love to. I would love to play shows with Hamish. I would love to tour as Hamish, but I would also love to tour as just Matt Benthall, guitar player,
Okay.
as well.
Cool.
I really want to balance the two. I really want to be both of those things.
Okay.
Um, if I could tour as Hamish and it was like an opening bill for someone way more established, I would love to do that.
Okay.
I would do that in a heartbeat. But really, in addition, uh, my initial goal, growing up was I want to play guitar for as many people as possible. I'm
Hmm.
still also on that pursuit. So there's these like two tracks that I'm, you know, for a while was not pursuing through COVID, but now I'm able to sort of commit to both, which
Hmm.
which is really great.
I
Really
love
grateful.
it.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much, Matt, for hanging out with me. I appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. This was an
Yeah.
absolute
I,
pleasure. I don't get to speak long verse about where I'm from and whatnot
I-
very often, and I usually
well,
shy away from it. But
no,
thanks for
man.
hearing me out.
It's you have a fascinating story. I love it. And I can't wait to hear the Joshua Tree record that you guys put together. I do have one more question before I let you go. I want to know, aside from never play a guitar loop at an audition, do you have any other advice for aspiring artists?
Yeah, be yourself and keep your ears open. Don't ever stop listening. Um, keep that channel open because you're always going to be humbled. You're always going to learn something by doing that. And don't get tunnel vision with your ears. If that makes sense.
Sure.
Keep that channel open. Always become a sponge, I guess.